Dragon Ball Z has given us some of anime's most iconic villains, each terrifying in their own right. Piccolo arrived as the self proclaimed Demon King, promising to plunge the world into darkness. Vegeta descended from the stars as an elite warrior who could vaporize planets with little more than a gesture. Frieza ruled as a galactic emperor whose cruelty was matched only by his overwhelming power. Even later villains like Majin Buu brought cosmic horror as a being of pure destruction that could turn you into candy before consuming you. Yet, for all their world ending abilities and monstrous acts, these villains operated within Dragon Ball's established framework. Their presence was well forecasted, their superiority was well monologued on, and they gave heroes ample time to power up and fight back on their own terms. No matter all the terrifying qualities you could assign them, they weren't predators operating in the shadows. Then came Cell. Where others brought apocalyptic destruction, Cell brought something far more intimate and visceral, the methodical horror of being hunted. He didn't just have the power to destroy humanity, he had the patience to consume it, one person at a time, savoring the fear. In Cell, Dragon Ball Z created its first true monster, and in doing so, proved the series could master horror just as effectively as it had mastered action. Part of why Cell's introduction hit so hard was because he wasn't supposed to be there. Trunks had explicitly warned us about the two androids, even telling us exactly when and where we would encounter them. Everything was already set in stone. Cell wasn't even part of the equation, but neither was Goku's survival, and neither was the appearance of androids 19 and 20. Trunks coming back to the past had already changed many things. This was made even more evident when Bulma made an unsettling discovery, a second time machine hidden away in the woods. But not just a second unaccounted for time machine, no. This was Trunks' time machine, an exact copy, even down to the very inscription Bulma had written onto the side of it in the past. Someone else had brought this time machine back here. Something else. The destruction of the cover atop the machine, a mystery where the only clue was a strange shell inside the machine. The tension only grew as they discovered some sort of larval molt nearby. This was recent. It could even still be nearby. But nothing happened. With nerves fried, the group split, leaving with more to ponder on than even the ever-present threat of the androids. Meanwhile, Kami had been sensing something ominous on the surface for a while, and it wasn't the androids. Piccolo had arrived with the intention of fusing with Kami to defeat them, but this new discovery, alongside his already present concerns, had the Guardian of Earth on edge. Eventually, however, it came time to do the merger, and the nameless Namekian was back again. While all this was happening, the androids themselves were relatively quiet, going on a nice Sunday drive, one might even say. Most of their harm done in retaliation. But the news began to report something entirely unheard of. An entire town gone in an instant. Nothing left but empty streets and piles of clothes, as though Rapture itself had torn through the streets. Sounds of a skirmish broke out briefly, then silence. This wasn't the androids. Could this be the creature that came back in the time machine? A newly empowered Piccolo arrives and gives validation to what the news had shown us. Eerie silence in what should have been a town full of life. Piccolo walks the streets and is surrounded by an apocalyptic event. Nothing but loose possessions blown about by the only sound present in the wind. But cutting through the silence at last approaches the monster responsible for the scene before us. The alien sounds of his footsteps and his ominous figure taking shape from the shadows. Piccolo is forced to watch as the monster immediately demonstrates his strange ability on a helpless civilian, draining away the very body of the man to nothingness. Knowing that approaching the creature carelessly could be his own demise, Piccolo awaits its next move. And now we see Cell in all his glory. If the build-up and suspenseful elements weren't enough, now we see what a true monster he is. Towering well over 7 feet tall, Cell's frame alone is enough to inspire fear. His sharp edges and bug-like features leaning into things that instinctively strike despair in humans. His distinct movement patterns an omen of impending demise. The sounds of his absorption a disturbing rhythm, with only those that can sense powers noticing the additionally terrifying fact that his power feels like all of the strongest fighters Earth has ever known rolled into one. And finally, he speaks. His raspy, alien-sounding voice confirming the fears were well placed. His conversation and presence alone are enough to make Piccolo uncomfortable. Keeping in mind this is a Piccolo freshly fused with Kami and believing himself to be at least on par with the other androids. And even with that knowledge, he's at the very least off-put by Cell's aura. But as is the custom, it rarely stops at words in Dragon Ball, and so their battle begins. We get confirmation of Cell's prowess in this fight with Piccolo. He's powerful, he's tactical, and he's got a lot of tricks up his sleeve, using the powers of Piccolo's allies and even some of his own abilities. They fight on, as he keeps Piccolo on the back foot even in spite of his new incredible powers. Eventually, believing Piccolo to be as good as dead, Cell explains to him that he's a genetically engineered android himself, made from the cells, get it, of all the Earth's greatest fighters, even including some former villains like Frieza and King Cold. Cell is an amalgamation, made to be the perfect harmony of the strongest warriors, made to surpass them, using their techniques and powers as if they were his own. Everyone was lucky that Piccolo was the one to encounter Cell, or we likely wouldn't have gotten him to explain his origins and motivations in the first place, proving why Piccolo is a combat genius in his own right, but we'll save that for another video. After divulging his intentions to become perfect by absorbing the androids, Cell finally decides to tactically retreat for now after being fooled by Piccolo and sensing other powers quickly approaching. But with what we now learned about how Cell operates and what he plans to do, it was clear he would only get stronger, and very quickly at that with his absorption ability in mind. It became a race against time. Suddenly, the androids were not only no longer the biggest threat, they were now almost a valuable asset to be protected, or destroyed outright to at least prevent Cell from becoming perfect. In the meantime, we get to see more of Cell's horrors in action. He suppresses his power to prevent the Z-Fighters from catching on to him, and sneaks from town to town, absorbing helpless people. If even our most powerful warriors can't stand up to Cell, then a normal human is utterly hopeless. He Jason Voorhees walks after his prey, giving the illusion of hope they can escape him, thriving on the fear. The only real hope is for one of Earth's strongest to show up and bail them out. Enter the legendary Krillin. Not that he has any illusions of victory himself, but at least he has techniques and the durability to take a few hits. My dude shows up, knows he has no chance of winning outright, but still tries anyway. Like Piccolo, we'll talk more on Krillin in another video down the line, so don't think we're done with him either. And Krillin tries to stall Cell until Piccolo can arrive, but alas, Cell gets away, and our cat and mouse cycle continues. Eventually, Cell manages to amass enough power to overwhelm even Piccolo and Android 17, and finally begins his journey to perfection. And while his second form and subsequently his perfect form are terrifying in their own right, he becomes more like a traditional villain at that point. Mega powerful, with a bevy of techniques and plenty of big bad swagger, but besides this incredibly uncomfortable scene with poor Android 18, the horror aspect is replaced with sheer overwhelming power, and thus the end of the menace that was Imperfect Cell. But humor me for a moment and put yourself in the shoes of the average Dragon Ball civilian. You encounter Cell in a city. You don't have any special powers. You don't even know what ki is. Regardless, your first instinct may be to fight back. But you've seen police and soldiers firing bullets at it on the news, even shooting it with tanks, and essentially throwing the whole kitchen sink at the monster, and it does nothing. You directly watch several brave souls attempt to fight back, and they're dealt with in a swiftness. Fighting back isn't an option. So now your next thought is to run away. But you witness it seemingly teleport from one end of the city to another, moving so fast you can't even perceive its movements. One moment someone is seemingly about to escape it, the next it's instantly in front of them. Its next meal. You can't fight back. You can't run. The last thing you can come up with is that you have to hide. It can't get you if it can't find you. You manage to sneak into an open building, where you notice several others are hiding out just like you. Everyone hunkers in a panic, and you all hear glass shatter as the monster simply walks straight through the final layer of protection between you and it. Everyone tries to stay hidden, but even the slightest bit of sound, and you see people getting discovered all around you. It's hearing far beyond that of any human thanks to Piccolo, but you don't know this. You just know it also has incredible hearing. Fine. Complete silence. You can do it if you just concentrate. The world around you goes still, as you and the others nearby have managed to stay perfectly motionless. Boom! Another person taken. It can sense their key. Again, you don't know this, but now you're just convinced it can see through walls, which at this point may as well be true. You can't fight back, you can't run, and you can't even hide. You no longer hear or see the others that were near you. You're all alone. Your fate is inevitable. Cell will find you. Your time is up.
I congratulate you, human. You managed to evade me the longest. As a reward, I will make your fate quick so that you may join me in perfection.
And at last, a flash of light overtakes you as a hero arrives, the whole area turning into a battlefield in an instant as you can hardly even make out what's happening. The hero appears to be losing, but at least he's putting up a fight. You're frozen in place as he tells you to stay put. The battle is quick, but he does just enough to hold off the monster until eventually it takes off. You're saved. Other strange people arrive and tell you not to worry and that they promise they'll bring everything back to how it was. You don't exactly understand much of what they say, but you have no choice but to believe them. They help you back on your feet and leave after you've calmed down. And eventually, your friends and even those that were around you that day do somehow come back to life. They told you the truth. So life moves on. But you'll never forget the terror that you felt that day. And you'll also never forget that hero and what they did to save your life. And then some pink dude showed up, and you weren't so lucky that time, but you don't even remember that, so forget I said anything, alright? And thus, the threat of Imperfect Cell has come and gone. At least in your timeline. Yeah, I guess the heroes forgot to mention the terrifying bug alien monster is also a time traveler. But there's a bunch of really strong blonde people that have it under control, so all is good. And that was Dragon Ball's brief but very effective venture into the horror genre. Of course, there have been a few other examples of frightening circumstances, like the androids and even Cell himself in the future timelines, or even in filler like with the Blackwater Mist and the Garlic Jr. saga, but by and large, Dragon Ball leans much more heavily into the action and adventure elements that made it the juggernaut that it is today. So when a series like this explores another genre and does it well, I feel like it's worth diving into. Dragon Ball is very near and dear to my heart, so you can expect more from me on this series in the future for sure. And if you liked the video, a like or a sub goes a long way, and feel free to check out my Patreon if you'd like to support directly. Thanks again, and with that said, I look forward to seeing you there, fellow anime lovers. Bye bye for now.